Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. I'm super excited today to share my guest with you. His name's Max Trombly. He's a men's mentor and teacher in the areas of life, purpose, and emotional intelligence, mental clarity, and deep intimacy, and how to work on conscious relationships. And although he works primarily with men, and that's how I met him. Around success, creativity, and purpose and connection. His ideas and teachings are so applicable and adaptable for everyone. So anyway, Max, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, we have worked together now for a while, and I'm always bringing what I'm interested in learning about to create remarkable art and life, to just build anything, realizing our dreams. It kind of it's this hard thing, right? It requires us to become a bigger, better version of ourselves, and a bunch of things get in our way. And I know this is, in a simple way, what you're helping your clients overcome. So I just thought maybe we just kind of start with a big net, and maybe you could talk about some of the bigger challenges that you work with folks on around objectivity and gaining clarity about themselves first and foremost, to be more self-expressed.
Yeah, I would love to. I mean, here's the way that I'd love to start this conversation, because as you explained to me, this particular podcast goes out to creatives and people that are probably creating things, maybe art, maybe music, maybe anything in the field of, artistry. And the thing that I would love to start with is that it's pretty easy to understand. If you want to become a painter, there's a pathway. It starts with learning how to use brushes. You then go through the process of what are the different types of paints and the types of material that we can paint on. And then who are some teachers I can study under or I can read about and see what their techniques are. And then from there, it's, okay, where do I need to go to school, or who is going to teach me so I can get better at this skill, which ultimately what you're aiming at is, as an artist, I'm expressing the depth of my artistry through a medium. But the medium being paint, you have a whole way that you become a painter that's pretty, it's a pathway. Like, you don't go from not a painter to an exquisite painter over 3 days. It's not like you get your first brushes and now you're Van Gogh or Monet. There is a process, and it includes study, and it includes discipline, and it includes repetition and trial and error,
Right.
And so one of the things that we want to look at here is, when it comes to life, why don't we apply the same idea everywhere else? I mean, I was a musician when I was a kid. And for me to have any degree of success with music, which to me meant playing in a band on stage in front of people and having a great time, for me to have that degree of expression in my life, I spent 10 years in my bedroom learning scales, learning chords, playing along to records over and over and over. Yeah. My favorite bands, I would play the songs and I would play along to them probably hundreds of times when I was 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. Finally, by 16, 4 years after starting, okay, now I'm playing on stage for the first time. Now I'm working on showmanship and performance. And, the whole thing is a skill set that we can build upon. Now, here's what's really interesting. No one even tells you can do this with love, with relationships, with purpose, with clarity. No one tells you that there's a way, there's a pathway to really refine and create toward the highest expression of relationship, the highest expression of love, the highest expression of intimacy, the highest expression of clarity, purpose, drive, motivation, determination. Like, these are all things that we can build pathways to and live out in our lives. But no one's talking about them in the same way we talk about how to become an artist or a musician.
But that's also where the missing pieces of the personal expression, right? Like, part of you getting on the stage and playing the scales is you feeling confident, you feeling empowered to stand up there, and all the things that you have to become this pretty remarkable person to grow into your art, into your expression. And that isn't included in the art degree,
No, it's really not. What's not included is the frustrating, like, if you're a guitarist, the first 2 years of guitar playing, like, you're so frustrated by your ring finger. and your inability to control it correctly. Or forget your pinky finger. Like you're frustrated by something as small as your ring finger. Well, eventually you get over that. And then you're like, okay, how do I work this edge of performance anxiety getting on a stage? And eventually you get over that. And now it's, how can I spin my guitar around my back and create flair while like we're in the middle of a bridge of a song? Like this is all like, it builds up. And eventually you're like, wow, this, you know, think about Led Zeppelin, think about the Rolling Stones, think about these artists who after long, I mean, when you see pictures of like the Beatles at the beginning, they're in suits, their hair is clean, and they're just like singing about love. But then the Beatles later on, it's like long hair, shaggy, and moving around stage, you know?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I even see pictures of myself like
Yeah.
5 or 6 years ago, and
Oh, yeah.
it's definitely a more constrained version of me. And
Totally.
it's almost, I mean, like, oh my God, how could I mean, I was just so
Tight.
protected and smaller,
Yeah.
and it's this fire to get out, how do
Yeah.
we get out of our own way,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and let's just bring this into the work that I do. So when I work with men, a lot of what I'm looking at is what's holding you back from being a yes to life? What's holding you back from feeling like you're receiving what you're here to receive? And we really look at those things. I mean, first of all, you have to define what do you actually want? And most men want kind of the same thing. It's kind of funny. We all think we're unique, but really at the end of the day, we kind of want the same thing, which is we want some degree of success in our life, financially, purpose wise. And then we want, relationships that function. And many of us want kids, and we want to be able to say, like, I did well as a dad. Like, these are things that we kind of all want inherently, whether we think about it or not. And so, what my job is to help men go, okay, let's actually get clear. Where are you in your life, and what do you really want? And then it's, okay, what's standing in your way? And often, people are playing too many instruments at once. They're painting too many canvases at once. And we have to say, let's start with one canvas. You might be doing things that have your energy spread all across the field. And it's like, let's just kind of refine and clear up a life so we can create
Yeah.
clarity, you know?
Yeah, no, totally. What brings you alive is where we start always, in our teachings and in
Yes.
Art2Life. And
Yeah,
like, that has to be understood. And
totally.
it actually, we can forget, or it goes dormant. I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure what happens, but it definitely can be, it needs to be pulled forward, and we
Yeah.
need to be reminded.
Well, I think, and just, this is a really common thing. When people talk to me about depression or just like midlife crisis, what I think happens is if we spend too much time living a life of misalignment, eventually our body, our vitality, our spirit body kind of just goes, I need a rest. And like that's what turns us off. And real depression, that's kind of like a like 40 years or 30 years or 20 years of just really being misaligned. But like subtly being turned off creatively is kind of the first part of that.
Yeah.
I have no creativity. You're probably burnt out, probably doing things
Yeah.
you don't want to be doing with your life, you know?
No, absolutely. And this idea that it's wellness, health is shown, through flourishing, through
Yes.
personal expression. It's a natural result of feeling good, feeling alive. I'm always surprised by so many of my clients, and that this is not going away.
Right.
The tug to feel this completeness, to
Yes.
feel self. It
Fully
doesn't
expressed.
ever, it doesn't go away. You
No.
you always are after it. And I think that's what you're speaking to.
Yeah.
And when you don't have it, there's illness,
Yep.
there's depression. It's
Coping mechanisms, addictions,
yeah.
all these things. Yeah, totally. Totally. My dad is 76 years old and he's getting married this month. So I talk to people a lot about love and relationships. And I just want to point out that you will never not want love. You will never not want the
Mm,
intimacy of being felt, seen, loved. In some cases, the juicier sides of intimacy, like those are alive in a lot of bodies. Vital bodies will be alive in those until, we're really old. So,
and I love how you say that, because that too can get shut down, right?
totally.
Vital bodies.
Yeah. Well, it's really important for people to understand that to be expressing beautifully in a creative sense, we have to be able to upkeep our vitality, our energy, our well-being. And, sustainable vitality across a life also results in sustainable creation across a life. If you want to be an
Yes.
artist at 75, you've got to have some vitality in your body at 75.
Yes, 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 absolutely. The
Yeah.
the more you give, the more you put out, the more
Yeah.
that you need to, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about. This, what I started with was, w- you know, the dreams, the future art, future expression, whatever the expression is, whatever you want, often it's the path towards it that is important to learn how to do. We always
Yeah.
want what we're not able to acquire or be in the moment, but
Yeah.
we have to become it and our
Yeah.
future self. And that is what I think is so interesting about this creative journey. I mean, it is
Yeah.
learning this
Yeah.
and understanding the codes and
Totally.
yeah,
Well, what you just said, I really want to flag because for anyone listening, this is important. What you said is you have to become your future self for your future self to be alive and living. And what I like when I'm doing a life reclamation path with somebody, which, just got
mm,
out of divorce, trying to regain like self and then create toward love, the most important part of that is actually going, who are you at your highest ideal? What is the lifestyle you want to be living in 3 years? And then it's like, let's build that first and date from there so that you're dating in alignment with the life you want to live. And that's what people don't understand is that we actually have to be the thing we want to be. Like years ago, I became a photographer. That was my career for a big chunk of my life.
no
And in order
kidding.
for me to do
Yeah.
that, what I did was I shot photos for 4 years, just learning lighting and learning different things. And then once I had a process and I knew I could deliver on a product consistently, I just started going like, cool, I'm available. And I built a business because I was already a photographer. It wasn't, I'm going to become a photographer and make money. It's, I'm going to become a photographer and then I'm going
Yeah.
to turn it into a company. And so I was a professional photographer before I took my first payment, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
that's what you have to do in life. And the same thing with music. Like when I was 15 years old and I walked into a venue to rent it for I like set up at a, Knights of Columbus or a VFW hall in the Northeast. I set up a
Mhm.
concert with like 6 bands. We're all probably between like the ages of 16 and 18 years old, all these bands. It's pretty crazy. I was 15. I walked in. I was like, I want to set up a concert. That was preceded by 3 years of going, I'm in a band. I'm doing it. Even though I wasn't, but in my vision, I was like, I'm on stage, I'm in a band, I'm doing it, I'm playing for people. Like I was living that reality in my actual truth. And then when the final day came where I had my first concert, I had already been there on that stage in my mind so many times because that's the truth of who I am. Does that make
Yes,
sense?
you kind of it's that saying, fake it till you make it, but you're not really
Yeah.
faking it. You're
No,
actually
you're actually in.
feeling the
Yeah.
feeling. Your brain doesn't know whether the reality you're feeling is real or not. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I love this, and I know that a lot of people listening, confidence is a big one, and which is
Yes.
what. So how do you coach this kind of hold this reality, even though there's
Yeah.
there's no proof, but you just have
Yeah.
to become it. But
Yeah.
that's pretty next level for a lot
Yeah.
of it.
Yes. So there's a couple things. So without getting into a specific track, like if somebody wanted to become something, there's kind of very specific parts to
Hmm.
that. But you mentioned confidence. And so one of the things is what stops people is hesitation moments. It only takes a millisecond of hesitation to change from I'm going to do it today to I don't know, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it, I'm not going to do it. That's a hesitation moment. And we have to look at where are we hesitating in pursuit of our dreams. And we have to stop those hesitations. Usually they come in the form of I don't know if I can do this. It's thoughts, I don't know if I deserve it. I don't know if I believe
Yeah.
this is like look, for me, I'll give you a real world example. I got divorced at 35 and I wanted to find a woman to have kids with and really like live out the rest of my life with in a beautiful relationship. And so between 35 and 37, I dated for a year and I just knew I'm going to find her. I'm going to find her. And I stayed on that and I envisioned it and I envisioned my future kids. And I dated for a year and it was really difficult because I was like, wow, 19 women I dated before I found my wife. And you can imagine by like the seventh, it's like, gosh, is there anyone that's going to meet me in this type of lifestyle that I want to create? And I just kept going. And amazingly, after a year, final person, she popped up and I was like, huh. And then as I met her, I was like, oh my God, I found her. But the thing is, most people are like, you dated 19 people? Like I wouldn't make it through 3. And it's like, well, that's the attitude that's going to result in you never finding the thing you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah. Right.
So we have to get past our like, I don't know. Oh, I'm never going to find it. I'm never going to become it. And we have to go, you know what? I'm after it. There's no reason anyone listening to this can't be anything they want to be. I mean, there's some
Yeah.
exceptions. Like if you want to be the president of the United States, you got to start that path pretty young. Probably go to like Phillips, Harvard, and a couple other schools. But like realistically, most things on earth you can become in a 10-year period if you really want to. And it's just a matter of saying, what is it that I want to be? What is it that I want to become? I've seen incredible things happen for people. I've seen people that worked salary positions in administrative jobs become multimillionaires because they decided, I want to be able to retire early with 5 million in my bank account. I've seen people go from insane relationship drama to living the life of their dreams in beautiful relationships and a pregnant wife. You know, I had dinner with a guy last night who, when I met him, complete confusion around how to create love, how to create relationship in a toxic relationship. I had dinner with him last night and he showed me a picture of his newborn. I was like, John, wow, 3 years ago. I can't even believe where you've come. And it's like, this is how it goes, you know?
This setting intention, this stepping into it,
Huge.
is so powerful. One of the hallmarks of one of our programs, the Creative Visionary Program, we spend a lot of time in the beginning and people creating these vision boards and writing down their desires. And it's almost daily we hear from people that, oh my God, this was just such a dream, and that's already achieved. These things get like ticked off, and it's just so synchronistic. It's a kind of
Yeah.
a miracle, but
Yeah.
it is something to this of just kind of speaking it, setting intention.
Well, just really saying like, I want this. Like most people aren't willing to dream about it because they're afraid if they dream about it, they're going to be more upset that they don't have it. But that's not how it works.
Yes.
To dream about it compels us toward it. You know?
Yes, yes. Because ultimately that is the fear, that if we say a thing and we don't achieve it, that
Yep.
is worse.
Yeah. One of the big things I do in men's immersions when I have men gather around is I say, what's your name and what are you creating in your life? What is the biggest vision of something you're creating in your life? And sometimes men will go, you know, I've never said this before, but I want to create a family. I want to find a woman, create a family. I want to create a business. Like they'll say it for the first time. And I often hear people say, I've never said this before, but, and then it's like, wow, you've been sitting on this for 7 years of your life. You've known it the whole time and you've never willed it through your lips. So it's really important that we actually own it. And that's one of the things I love about men's workspaces is I'll have men who are not prepared to claim their lives. And I go, what are you here for? And they go, oh, okay, here we go. And then it starts this whole process where they're like, well, I can't walk that back now. I've said it and that is what I want. And so I'm going to create it. You know, I've seen some of the most resistant men in my men's workspaces over 4 years finally arrive at something while resisting the path the whole way because he decided it 4 years ago. 4 years ago, I'm going to have land in Mississippi. I'm in New Orleans for your listeners. I'm going to have some land in Mississippi with a farm, blah, blah, blah. And even as he continued to make the same choices in his life that he's always made, he was just inching toward it. Now he's got it. And he's like, I can't believe I achieved this with like barely any effort. And it's like, well, it's because you claimed it 4 years ago and you couldn't unclaim it.
Yeah, you kind of can't go back, kind of putting a line in the sand, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we voice it, it's a prayer. When we pray, it becomes.
And it pulls us forward to move forward on these is kind of requires, I call it fire. It's a raising of energy. This is something that we need to make bigger work, to make art, to just really, it's like self-leadership. It's our energy. And this wavers, but I'm seeing more and more how if you can create a life, and I think this is kind of what you're coaching, where you stay on this more often than not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if 5 out of 10 days you're on, you're going to win. You know? It's just sort of a game of balance. Are you pouring into the cup of goodness or the cup of not goodness? And it's like, if there's more in the cup of goodness, when you weigh it out at the end of the week, you're still in the good, you know? And that's just kind of how life goes. But yeah, I always tell people, like, I'm kind of a master at understanding relationships and dynamics within relationships, but that doesn't mean that my wife and I don't get into conflict. We have a real relationship just like everybody else. It's kind of my lab. I get to see the truth of my relationship and use that to inform my understandings. But what I'll say is that overwhelmingly across a month, I'd say 90% of those days, like, we feel great and we see like the future of our lives in each other's eyes, And then, a couple of those days, our kids have us fatigued and up all night, or like there's sickness. There was a cold last week. And, so there will be those stressful times. But if most of the days you feel positive, most of the days you've expressed your heart and your love for your partner and she's done the same, we can manage. We can tolerate a lot of hardship as human beings. We've done it for, a million years. But we need the dreams. We need the goals to survive.
One of the challenges that I have, and I think a lot of men or maybe just people in general, I know
Yeah,
my father had this in spades. Both my parents were from England, didn't emotionally express,
totally.
but this thing you just kind of said it. That's what triggered me is, you go through your day and you connect to who you love or you express
Yeah.
your love and that in and of itself is a practice, right?
Yes.
Like to I feel that, but
Hmm.
but what I've learned in my own kind of growth is that I wasn't, even though I was feeling it, there's sort of the internal feeling I have, which is wonderful, but
Yeah.
I wasn't expressing it.
Right.
And then the people around me
Yeah.
weren't receiving it, and
Yeah.
or it wasn't going out of me. There's this internal kind of world, and there's this external world, and I think this
Yeah.
sort of crossing over back and forth, so they're more or less the same, is sort of
Yeah.
my vision of is freedom, but I'm not there yet at all. But I think that's really interesting. And I think
Yeah. It
it's
is important.
challenging for
Yeah.
men and women too, probably less so for women, but certainly for men.
I think women are permissed, allowed, and fostered into a more expressive existence in their childhood. Girls
Mm,
play and they laugh and they, emotions and drama and all the things. Like that's kind of the realm of the feminine as young, youthful, feminine beings. And so they're sort of more fluent in expressing truth of heart stuff, for good or for worse. And whereas men are sort of like tamped down, and it's like you got to be productive, you got to sit in your seat, you got to do exactly as score
yeah.
good grades on and so like there's sort of there's like a governing or a limiting of the masculine in its expression. And okay, whatever, that's just what it is. And as men, we need to reclaim it and be like expressed. If we want really good relationships, our partners need to feel our love, feel our
Mhm.
desire, feel our joy to be with them. When we express anything at our partners that's positive, they get to go, oh, he's still here, he loves me, he wants me, this is exciting to be with him. That's how the feminine understands life. The feminine understands life through the experience of feeling. And so if they can't feel their men, it's like, I don't even know where he's at. Does he love me? Are we together? Like,
Mm.
what's happening? They start to go crazy,
Yes,
because it's
that's
like,
so
I can't
good.
feel my men. Yeah.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
how they're wired in a way,
Am
and
I safe or
that's
not?
right. And then we have to,
Uh huh.
and this is challenging, like the doing, the analytical,
Hmm.
get things done, and efficiency, and the mono focus, right? The
Yeah.
singular focus that, I certainly have this where I can be so focused on something that,
Oh, yeah.
all kinds of things can be happening around me, and
You
it's
have no idea.
crazy because, but there's this ability that I've become aware of that I
Yes.
want to develop around holding more
Yeah, totally.
at the same time. And
Yeah.
can you speak to that? Because this
Yeah.
is
So
not what I can do yet, but I
most,
love this idea.
yeah, I love this. This is really an important conversation. Most men or people that live in their masculine understand that they can get really narrow and like very sharp in their thinking. I'm thinking about this thing and how do I work this thing and how do I open it up or how do I fix it? Like it's like small. It's like our brain is focused on a laser beam in front of our hands. And that might be if we're an artist or if we're a businessman or if we're an investor or like a mathematician or like a science person, like any of those fields. And it's like, all right, thoughts. So then your partner is like, hey, what do you want for dinner? It's like, I don't know. And it's like, come on. And it's like, what we really want to be able to do is go, hold on one second. Okay. What did you just say? Oh, what do you want for dinner? Okay. Can we do pasta? Yes. Okay, great. Now back to thinking.
Yeah.
Like that's where we want to get. We want to be able to flip open and wide
Mm-hmm.
and then go back. And the thing is, it's not always possible. So sometimes you have to do it by time. So for me, I am really heady. My dad was an engineer and I grew up kind of with a very thinking mind. My dad was a German engineer. So like I'm really on that kind of mind thing. And what I have to do is I know around 4:35 p.m. every day, I'm approaching the end of my thinking and I'm moving to, hey, how's it going? Let's play. Got the kids, life. I have to actually pivot to that way of being. And, usually for me in my life, I actually have like intentional practices to move my energy, to go from like for this super narrow thinking mind to like, okay, I'm here. Like I might shake my body or I might, do some motion and movement with my body that cracks open my energetic field. Sometimes around dinner time, I'll take a shower just to kind of like get that energy off my body and then just be like free.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
know, there's a practice that I do a lot, sauna and cold plunge, so contrast therapy. I used to do this every Monday for a couple of years as a way of resetting my energy completely so I could just be really driven in business, like get out of my kid life weekend zone and get into, okay, I'm right here and I'm on it. And then, you know, later in the afternoon, I might do it again to just shift into like, okay, now I'm in kid life, you know, dad life. So I'm actually shifting my energy. You know, I'm physically thinking about how do I tweak and shift my energy so I can pivot into a different moment.
Yeah. This reminds me, and it's the same when, at the highest kind of level, or one of the higher levels of that we can get with our art,
Yeah.
down the road,
Uh-huh.
when we're working on a piece of it, what happens to someone who's sort of early in this is they kind of fall in love with a corner of it and they become
Yeah.
self-absorbed in this,
Yeah.
and the whole thing isn't really working. And
Right.
so then you kind of stand back and you go, oh my God, this thing's not working, because and I call it actually partitioning, when we work on
Totally.
part
Yeah.
and not the whole. And
Totally.
you need that skill for the part, but then
Yeah.
you also have to be able to pull back
Yeah.
and see the whole thing.
Totally.
And then the sort of
Oh,
like
this is so
third
good.
higher level is, while you're working on the small, you also have to understand and hold. You can do it simultaneously a little bit, like
Yes.
there's an awareness of, it's like a great comedian, they're speaking to someone in the left corner, but they're aware of someone going over there to the right,
Yeah.
it's amazing people that present, it's a
Hmm.
whole thing of awarenesses of those intimate conversations, and then the broader one, how their body looks on the stage and
Yeah,
the
totally.
tones,
Hmm. Eye
but
contact.
it's so, and it's like left brain, right brain, same thing,
Yeah.
the emotional out of control with control,
Yeah.
playing these opposites. And
Yeah.
what's helped me understand, or be okay with learning how to do this kind of frustrating thing, it's been frustrating for me because I just get so focused. It's actually a little painful for me
Yeah.
to switch.
Hmm.
And then that can come out like, oh God, oh, pasta,
Oh, I'm so frustrated about my life
Right, right.
impeding on my
But
other life.
yes, yes,
I know.
but it is actually more rich to
Yeah.
be connected. You're more connected to the actual world,
Yeah.
close up and far away, which I
Yeah.
think is way better.
Yeah, it is. You know, there's something I teach, discipline around pivot. So like being
Ah,
disciplined in your capacity to pivot, because most people like I've even experienced what you're saying, which is like, oh my God, I'm doing so much good stuff at work and now my wife wants my attention for dinner time. Like, and now I'm frustrated at my wife. And it's like, that's not how I want to live. Here's the thing. You want to paint a painting. Instead of partitioning the corner, look at the whole painting, touch the corner, look at the whole painting, touch the corner. So with my life, I want to have a great life, successful business. My kids love me and my wife loves me, great sex life. Things are happening that are good and I'm moving toward greatness. And in order to do that, that means I have to be disciplined with my pivots. I have to be able to go, okay, done work, pivoting toward her. I'm going to take a shower so I can be present with my kids. Here we go. You know what I mean? Like there's things that I have to be disciplined with, because I know that the other option is I'm just resentful that I'm having like, oh, I'm doing so much good stuff with my work and now I got to go do dinner. Like, but there's no reason to be resentful there. I chose kids. I love kids. I want my kids. I want my family.
right, right,
But
right.
so, you know, there's this thing that's very common. People get to the end of people's kids go off to college and then they go, oh my God, we have no relationship. What happened to our relationship? Like I don't even like want you. Like, and they go, what happened? And it's like, well, you know, you had children and you stopped looking at each other with your desire, with your love, with your, you know, the play of intimacy, and you just focused on your kids and you did 25 years of kids. And now all of a sudden your kids have gone and you've lost a whole piece that was crucial, which is we're in this together, loving each other, having fun. Like that was the thing that brought you together before kids. And then it's like you
Yeah,
have kids and you drop it because you're busy focusing on kids for 25 years. And then people call me and they go, yeah, so we just sent our kids off to school and I don't even know if I want to be with this woman anymore. And it's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
okay, well, let's sort that out. Let's figure
yeah,
out what you want to do with your life first, you know?
yeah.
And do
And
you guys align?
this is the, obviously you need attractions and
Yeah.
lives change and
Yeah.
all those things. We want different things, but
Yeah.
this is where the sort of the artistry or the
Yes.
artful approach, where
Uh-huh.
we have to, and I'm checking this story with you, but it's like we're in this relationship where, with whoever, with our intimate partner
Yeah.
or our art or whatever, or what we want to make, or
Hmm.
the artistry is finding the little breadcrumbs of passion, that how we can
Yes.
stay current, how we can fall in love all over again, how we can find the parts of who we are, that or who they are, that we don't know yet, right? It's
Yes.
always there, but there's this kind of like intentionality again to
Yes.
to love, right? It's
Yes.
not just like Cinderella. I mean, could you speak to that? Because that's, I think
Absolutely. As you
that's
were
the art,
describing this,
right?
here's really what I believe to be true. When we meet someone at the beginning of a relationship, we sort of have an accidental color palette. And just follow with me for a second.
Okay.
Because of curiosity, joy, play, which happens at the beginning of a relationship, just dating somebody, that's exciting. So it feels like play. It's curious. Because of the ingredients of curiosity, joy, play, we are activated and it creates passion and desire. But then when we get into relationship and curiosity disappears over time and play starts to disappear because we're doing other things, we lose the color palette that informed the passion in the beginning of our relationship. And so to become an artist of love or a relationship or intimacy or anything that we're doing in life, we have to go, what is the color palette that's needed for this to bring some color back to this canvas? And so within intimacy, this is like a really, 6 years into intimacy, we're not having a lot of sex. Like our intimacy is not working. Like we're not sure what to do about it. What do we do? And it's like, okay, well, what are your skills? Like what are your techniques that light her up into a laugh, into playfulness, into oh wow, yeah, like excitement in the body. And most people go, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I go, okay, great. So you relied on some natural things to happen at the beginning of your relationship, but you never developed an actual discipline around how do I ignite passion in my partner's body? How do I evoke her into desire? How do I get her excited? Just excited is an energy, and it's a good energy for intimacy. And so anyway, most people arrive 6 years into a relationship and their entire color palette is shades of gray. And what they need to do is, how do I get some red back in here? How do I get some orange, yellow? How do I get some gold? How do I get some other textures that are different kinds of paints? Like how do I do this? And so I will often teach people, in my coaching spaces, I'll teach people like, well, why don't you try this? And they try that and they go, wow, yeah, she laughed. And I'm like, great, that's perfect. That's opening. So from a laugh, now what are we going to do? Hey, I'd love to see you in that dress that you bought like a couple of years ago. I haven't seen it since then. And like, could I take you out this weekend? Like, oh, what a beautiful way to kind of re-inspire a little bit of like juice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that you're touching upon kind of the keys to this being
Yes.
curiosity, being
Play, wonder, joy.
playfulness,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Laughter.
Yeah.
But and this, and I think these are elements of presence, right? Like
Yeah.
I've had challenges in my relationships with my ex-wife, and there was definitely like a lot of thinking to the past of like
Yeah,
how
totally.
it used to be, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna do anything,
No.
but it just, and this is what we do in our art, right? Like if
Yeah.
we're thinking about like I used to be good at this, and where my art teacher doesn't think so I'm good or what, but it all happens in the present, and the
Yes.
way in is through play, is
Yep.
through just being curious, like just get out the art materials and
Risk.
see what happens,
Taking a
and
risk.
so I think that's so interesting that I've just never thought about that. Like it just makes it present. Like you
Yeah.
just meet the person. You're laughing because there's surprise and wonder
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
Wow.
and like here's a really good example. So I'm like 6.5 years into this relationship, and this is a perfect moment where a lot of relationships have lost their juice and lost their like vitality. And common stuff that happens in my relationship that ignites us into loving each other and feeling like the passion for each other would be like one of us cracks a joke. And like in the moment of laughter, then there's like eye contact. And it's like a remembering that we love each other in that moment of eye contact. It's a remembering that we want each other in that moment of a laugh. And then maybe there's like a physical touch component that comes after that, or like an hour later, that like really just kind of goes like from laugh to my hands on her waist going, oh, I miss you. I love you. These are the things that bring us back together. And then it's all of a sudden we're like wrapped around each other in the evening because it's like we've reignited that old part of us that really loves passion, play,
Yeah.
love, and we know how to turn each other on and we know how to do all the things. And so it's like once we get back into that field of play, but getting through the gate back into the field of play, you just mentioned something really important. In old relationship, you had resentments or you had beliefs and things that just weren't okay. So for a lot of couples, what I have to do is I have to go, let's take an inventory of the resentments. Let's take an inventory of the wounds that have occurred in this relationship. And then let's take like full radical self-responsibility for them so that the other person knows it'll never happen again. Sorry for the way that I like, for me as a man, sorry for my lack of leadership during that moment. I really let you down, you know, or sorry for not bringing the truth of my heart when I knew there was something I needed to share with you. You know, like
Right.
reconciling with these things is really critical. And so that's the kind of stuff we have to do to open up back to passion, love, play, all the good stuff.
Yeah. 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 That's so good.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we've talked about, and I know that this is sort of expertise in your areas. It's this idea around purpose,
Yep.
and kind of us all figuring that out, as all
Mm-hmm.
getting that, getting where are we going as individuals? What do you want?
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of a uncovering, and there's challenges to that.
Yeah.
But there's, you know, I'm seeing like that's connected a lot of times to our past, and
Yeah.
like things, the traumas that I had, and things that get in my way actually have helped me, and it's why I do what I do.
Yeah.
I had a borderline personality
All
mother
right.
who
Yeah.
I had to be really careful around,
Mm-hmm.
saying how I actually felt. So it's no surprise that I'm here doing this podcast talking about self-expression. That's what I help people do. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
totally.
and this must be so interesting for you. And so how do you help people, and what would you say, like, to like get
Around
people,
purpose.
like, yeah, to like get them to recognize it. It's almost like we don't know our purpose sometimes, or we're entangled in it,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it creates challenges.
Well, let me extrapolate this out a little bit because first of all,
Okay.
whenever we talk about purpose, there's two sides to purpose. So first of all, there's women and there's men. And many women have a different kind of relationship to purpose than men, but let me explain why. Within all of us, we have a masculine and feminine side. So as an
Mm,
individual, I have a masculine side, which is structure, consciousness, awareness, and I have a feminine side that's like, this feels good. I like this. I want more of this. It's like the energy. So anyway, what I will say about purpose is that if you're a feminine leaning being, purpose is really about the day to day of my life feels like a yes. I love this. This is good. My things feel good. If I'm in that, that's the highest purpose for the feminine. Yes, life. Now, for the masculine in all of us, including women that have a masculine side, purpose for the masculine is mission oriented, skill, craft, art oriented. Like, what am I creating toward? What am I developing? You know, like any skill that you're like operating toward, or any goal that you're operating toward, that
mhm.
can be a purpose. And now a purpose can be as simple as I want to become an awesome guitarist and be in bands and play on stage. Like that can be a purpose that you're like devoted to. And I was from like age 13 to like 26. That's like my sole purpose was to be a musician, performing, playing, recording, creating. And so that, that was my purpose. And then cool, I completed that purpose and things happened and I left the music industry and I became a photographer. So then it was like, I want to become a professional artist as a photographer. And that was my purpose. And I just immersed myself in the skill building of it so that I could become the best I could become at that niche, the one niche that I was in.
Yeah.
And then I became successful at it and it was great. And then, yeah, at this point in my life, my purpose is big. I have a different kind of purpose. I'm 42 and my purpose is to raise my kids beautifully, to serve my wife beautifully. And then I'm creating in such a way in the world that I'm trying to shift a chunk of our culture toward a deeper way of performing as men. How as men can we shift and change the way we raise our kids, the way we hold our wives, the way we are as men. And
Mhm.
I'm trying to do this because, I've been listening to, 40 years of feminism, Me Too, all the different things that are coming up, conversations around structures that have existed for thousands of years. And it's like, okay, how can we actually elevate this and do it better? There's a lot of good things that men have done in the world. Like men have been responsible for a lot of greatness. And then there's some other stuff that's not so great. And so how do we actually make that a little better? How do we make the way men engage with the emotional field more comprehensive and cohesive? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like what if every 14-year-old boy went through a program where they learned how to work with consent and actually knowing what they desire? Most 14 and 15-year-old boys, they're really sexually charged. They have desires, but they don't know that. And so they're unconsciously chasing the fulfillment of desires, causing wreckage all across the field because they're doing it without consent. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's actually a beautiful and natural thing, but we're like refusing to talk about it, and we let these boys run amok across the field, causing chaos. All we have to do is tell boys, like, listen, this is what's going to be true. You're really going to want this thing, and here's how you can work with it consensually in ways that women will be like, oh, thanks for asking. Sure, yeah,
Yeah. And I think having you describe, uh, you know, obviously we all have, there's the feminine and
Yep,
the masculine in
yep,
all of us.
hmm
And that isn't Yeah, I don't
No one
think
talks
that's
about it.
talked about.
Yeah. Well, and the reason it's important is because most people end up neutral and have no sensation in either direction. So they don't have a strong spine and determination in their life, which would be the masculine. And they don't
Yes.
have any way of feeling anything. They're kind of neutral. And then, when you bring in like pharmaceuticals and other things that actually numb our emotional body,
Oh
then we're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
when we get really confused. And so I'm not trying to knock that, but like, let me just say, let me be really clear. It's really important that we understand that our masculine is about being able to go, where am I in the world? And our feminine is about, and how does it feel? And what do I want to do so that it feels better? What am I
Yeah.
going to create today? What am I going to eat today? What am I going to listen to today? Like that's inside all of us. We have the masculine. What am I doing? And how's it going to feel? That's the feminine.
Yeah. And I guess I have probably more feminine, but perhaps, but I definitely coach finding our way
Yeah.
through for our art in from a felt sense,
Yeah.
uh, to connect with that and
Yeah.
across the board. And almost whether men or women, we tend to think of an outcome,
Hmm.
a strategy that gets in the way of our self-expression.
Yeah.
So I'm always pulling into the felt sense in
Yeah.
order as as the strategy.
Yeah.
It's
Totally.
sort of interesting, and I work
Yeah.
with mostly women, probably, so but it's somehow missed.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, you seem to bridge the masculine and feminine in your expression as a human being pretty well because you are an artist, but you've also got containment around what you're creating as an artist in such a way that it's working successfully for you. So that's
Yeah.
really amazing. A really good example of being able to work with the masculine and feminine is a captain of a sailboat. So, like, you have a structure, which is like a wooden boat and a sail, and you're able to manipulate your structure, working with the flow of the feminine to achieve something in life.
Oh my
Like to move across an ocean on a sailboat is sort of mastery of the masculine and feminine. The structure is your boat and how you use your boat while holding awareness of the weather and the feminine,
God.
you know?
Yeah.
Orchestra, somebody that has an orchestra, like the what is it, a conductor, that's also
Conductor.
really like they're aware of the whole thing, all 50 parts of this orchestra and where we're going in the song. And that way the people that are playing can just be in the felt experience of that violin,
Yes.
and they're letting the masculine, the conductor's the masculine and the violinist is just in the flow, you know?
Yeah, and I love how you I've learned this from you, that the way that we are
Hmm.
has huge freeing consequences for those around us,
Oh
right?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Which I never really thought of. It's
Yeah.
all about me trying to be better so I can achieve all the things I want.
Yep.
But it's kind of amazing when you can change your state, and it actually changes your environment, which is,
100%.
yeah. Can you just speak a little bit of that? Because I
Yeah.
think
Well,
so
yeah, I
great.
was talking about earlier. I said, like, discipline around pivoting. And the reason I am disciplined in my pivoting is because if my wife gets home and I'm in my work mode and then I'm frustrated that she just like invaded me with children. I mean, men can really understand this. If like someone invades your space and you're trying to get something done, you just feel frustrated. So then you're like, oh, what are you doing? And then all of a sudden your wife is like, God, I just got home. I love you. Like, what the heck? And so I really realized, like, okay, I have to pivot before my wife gets home. So when she gets home, I can be like, hey, baby, how are you? Like, what do you need? From an honest and earnest place. And so, like, how do I manipulate and work with my own energy? How do I move and shift my energy so that I'm in the right energetic for the thing that's happening next? That is such a critical thing. I mean, look, if you're a person that gets on stage or performs, you know that right before you get on stage, you might listen to a song that pumps you up, or you might like shake your shoulders off, or you might like, Tony Robbins, like he
Yeah.
jumps on a trampoline and does all this stuff. And then he goes out. What he's doing is he's disciplined with the pivot. Before stage, he's like, okay, is the production up? The lights are up. The music's up. We're good. How many people are in the room? How many tickets do we sell? Are we any problems? That's like 10 minutes before stage. But right before stage, jumps on the trampoline, pivots his energy, walks up, presents. So we need to be able to do that in life. We need to be like, what is the energy I need during work? What is the energy I need during relationship? What is the energy I need during service, sales? Salespeople know this. What's the energy I need to have in my body when I'm selling a product? Like, this is not unknown stuff, but we just don't apply it to everything that matters, which is like
Yeah.
my wife when she gets home from work, for example.
Yeah, like there's no user's manual that
No,
covers this
I
human
know
being
it's
thing.
so bizarre.
It's so important. The
It's
energy
literally
we
the most
bring
important
to
thing.
our creativity, the energy we bring to being just by ourselves,
Yeah,
adjusting it. It's just
yeah.
it's a morass, you know.
Yeah, it's so strange that we just don't ever, like, no one really talks about it. Like, as if, look, man, I train people in energy and how to use different energy. And what's amazing is I'll have a man try these different energies for the first time in his life, like in front of another man. Like, he'll like try to like be a little like more like in control or dominant, or he'll try to be like more like wispy and smoke and movement. And then he'll just go like, wow, I've never even realized that like I can actually feel that difference of energy in my body. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
imagine how good it would be if you went into your next sales meeting with like 40% dominance and 60% diffuse smoke, so that you're both like, hey, I'm here, and you're easeful, you know? You're not
Yes.
holding the fear of not making the sale. You're not holding the fear of, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. You're just holding, I'm capable and I am like here. I'm
Yeah.
occupying the space. And so these are things that I practice with men to teach men what energy actually feels like in their body. And then also they get to feel what other people are emoting through their energy, and they can go, oh my God, I didn't realize that feels like that. Like when I'm a jerk, like it actually feels really horrible on like when this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Or
It's
not even a
incredible that,
jerk.
like, I've done energy workshops,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
you know
Totally.
that somebody can describe
Yeah.
how you might want to try it on,
Yeah.
and you can just drop into it. You can just
Totally.
kind of do it. It almost feels like you're acting it,
Yeah.
but
Well, you
you
kind of are, but you're
totally
just
feel
choosing an
different.
energy. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you feel different. And
Yeah.
I think that is that's kind of a miracle that
Yeah.
we all have this in us,
Oh,
right? It's
yeah. We
not
have,
like, well, you're a wallflower, you're always going to be a wallflower. It's, no,
no, you can do whatever you want.
bring this fire. And
Yeah.
I speak of it as fire, but it's just the growth, it's just the sort of ignition of your energy, just
Yeah.
raising the energy level, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and from a fully embodied place. And so like for anyone that's listening, like you can imagine the energy it would take for you to like push a wall. Like if you had to push a wall, you'd brace your whole body and you'd have energy come up from your hips and you would push the wall. And so like to have energy run through your body, it can't be like you're sitting there dormant, not feeling your body and there's energy happening out of your forehead or something. Like that's not what we're talking
Right.
about. We're talking about like vitality in life comes from your hips and it comes up your chest and it comes through your arms and your eyes and your face and your teeth. Vitality is a very alive, energetic thing. And you know,
Mm.
that we don't talk about it is pretty bizarre. Well, some people do. Like the pranayamic breathers of India
Yeah.
have been talking
Yeah,
about it for
sure.
5,000 years,
Yeah.
you know?
And we feel it in dance. We feel
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so good. So, listen, as we kind of wrap up here,
Mhm.
I'm just curious, you know, you are on such a journey, and
Yeah.
you're out chasing this so well, and just expressing it so beautifully. Where is your edge, or like what's challenging for you, you know, on your sort of journey with all this? Like where are you hitting your edge? I'm just so curious.
Yeah. I have to do this through analogy because it's a felt experience edge. And I always use sailing and sailboats in like how I describe things because so I'm after some really big goals and I know that they're big. And I
Yeah.
know that they're big because very few people have done them. And so I kind of know the scope, the size of the company to do it, the amount of money involved in executing on it. Um, and so as I look out across that kind of horizon of what I have to do, it's sort of like what I'm doing is I'm sitting in a port building a boat that can cross all of the oceans and go around the earth like 4 times without stopping in another port. And I'm like, okay, how do I build a boat that can sustain, you know, circumnavigating the earth multiple
Yeah.
times in a sustained way that allows it to like not have to stop for years? Like, and I that's what I feel like I'm doing right now is I'm working on my energy. I'm working on my physical health. I'm working on all the things that will put me in the right position so that when I really activate into this next moment, which is a big moment that's coming soon, I'm activating into it now. There's different pieces that are opening right now. As I'm moving toward this, my body is in right health. My spirit is alive and well. My relationships are good and in good standing. My kids feel good. I feel good as a
Yeah.
dad. Like everything, my ship is in order. And then, you know, so that's what I'm doing is that my edge is
And
okay.
so you
Like
can,
make
this big scary goal, this
set sail.
vision,
Yeah.
you have to become this new person, it's a new identity that
Yeah. Yeah.
so cool.
My house it's right now I'm in a game of how in order is my house. My house is in order. Once my house is like really dialed and I'm almost there. Like there's some things I had to do before I embark on this journey. I had to do a couple things. So there was a staged growth to my company. And the reason is because the first stage had to resolve. It couldn't just be just an upward climb. It was stage 1, plateaus and completes. And that there was a financial stage there. Stage 2 is about where my family lives, what we're doing, where the kids are in school, and that's what we're working on now. And then once we're settled there, stage 3 is expanding into this next moment of my company. And that way I can go, cool, my family's set, my kids are set, we're good. I got a 3-year, 5-year trajectory to like really focus on this next part of my company.
Yeah.
You know, my company is going to serve a lot of people in its fullest expression. 10 years out, 10,000 people, a lot of men, a lot of women, a lot of relationships, a lot of kids, 14, 15, 16-year-old boys doing initiations to really become good, holistic, healthy men. You know, there's a big expression of this company when I really get it fully up and running. But to build toward that, it's a lot of like, how do I set the soil in such a way that these plants will grow season after season?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's inspiring, Max. And
yeah, thanks.
And, you know, as we wrap up here, I know that some of the listeners, I'm sure, want more. You know, and I know you've got a couple of programs. Maybe just give a quick little description of that. You guys, there'll be links in the show notes for this, but tell us just real quick, because I think these are massive opportunities for people to learn.
So first of all, my name is Max Trombly. It's MaxTrombly. And if you type that into anything, you can find me on Instagram. Instagram right now is kind of my main output channel for daily stuff. And then YouTube will come next, and TikTok is sort of partial. So anyway, you can find me online, and that's the easiest way to loop in immediately. I have a men's work immersion happening in November in Florida. It's a small group, just 27 men. I'm building the foundational parts to a big men's work operation. So part of the people coming to my early immersions, some of them are really invested in the growth of this company, and some of them are just here to do the work. And so whatever, you know, there's a men's work thing happening in Florida. Beyond that, I'm running a bunch of programs around life reclamation. So how do we go from unconscious to conscious? Like, how do we go from unconscious relationships to conscious relationships? How do we reignite intimacy and love? How do we heal from divorce and find deep love? Like, all these reclamation pathways, I'm building programs for them because I know how to do it. I have coached tons of people through it, but I want to give people the keys to just basically like, watch this program and you'll be able to go, that's how I get the next thing I want. That's how I move through this hardship to get to the goodness that I'm after. Like, that's the kind of stuff I'm building in terms of like an education platform. Really, it's around divorce, dating, deep love, repair in relationship, how we deepen our relationship, like that. And the reason I focus on relationship is because your home is where your life is. If your home is good, your life is good. If your home is not good, it poisons the well of everything. And so we have to have good relationships at home to really feel good in our life. It's just how it is. So that's why I focus on relationship.
I love their reclamations, right? We're reclaiming. We're
reclaiming what we're here to do.
Yeah.
Every one of us has a dream, and every one of us had a dream, even as kids. And a lot of us let go. And we just went, oh, well, I just got to get a job. And you should really look at that dream. And is it still alive in you? If it is, you know, it's amazing. I've had men in their 50s go, you know, I really wanted to do this. And I go, let's do it. And then within 5 years, they're doing the thing that they had ignored for 40 years of their life because they just were like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know? So anyway,
so great.
You can find me online.
Thank you so much.
My website is ashiftinbeing.com. Ashiftinbeing.com is the website people can find my stuff at.
And there'll be all these links in the show notes, you guys. Yeah. Max, thanks so much for being here.
Nick.
It's a privilege. Thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.